Start with this. All right, one moment. All right, welcome back for Gnosis. This is episode 7. Our special guest today is Alexander Rivera. He is the author of several books, including The Sun Lady Unveiled and co-author of Baphomet, The Temple Mystery Unveiled, with the late, great Tracy Twyman. You can check out his website, theaeoni.com, which spans different topics regarding comparative mythology, the Holy Grail, esoterica, the Apocrypha, and the Bible. He is a self-trained scholar, gathering primary sources and piecing them all together on his own or with the help of friends. He currently resides in Orlando, Florida, and works in the insurance industry. So, Alex Rivera, welcome to Gnosis. I'm so glad to have you on the show. I've been a fan of your work for some time. I've been a fan of you and Tracy's book, Baphomet, which I just finished, although I've been reading it in snippets online through your website, both of your blogs, and a lot of controversy related to that book and to Tracy and her sudden passing. May she rest in peace. I think Tracy's a real hero. I think if there is a great God, and I think there is, she deserves to be in heaven because she died fighting the good fight. She died protecting children from absolute monsters. And I respect you both very much for the work you did unveiling and revealing really the cult behind this madness we see with things like Epstein Island and Pizzagate and Pedogate and the royal, the quote unquote royal family, those blood sucking swine. So I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show, and I'm blessed to know that you and others like you exist. I think shows like the X Files, to me Tracy was like a real life Scully. She was really digging in deep and exposing this stuff. And I hope the people, those people in Hollywood who still have a heart and a soul, and those independent creators will tune into your guys' work and see what it looks like to be an occult crime investigator. And I'm really looking forward. You've got a presentation you put together for us, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Is there anything you'd like to say before we get started?
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, yeah, thank you so much for having me on your show. So, so this presentation is a mixture of a lot of different topics that I've researched in the past, and also what I'm looking into now. Uh, so with Tracy, that was very tragic. So hopefully this will maybe like provide sort of like a foundation to to honor her, so a lot of her work, and also to mix in a lot of what I've been researching lately, and what I'm planning to put out there in the future. So thank you for having me on.
My pleasure.
Cameron.
And oh, dude, my pleasure. And I'm an independent artist. You're an independent artist, and one of the goals I have with Gnosis is to just shine a light on the people out there who deserve people's support more than say the Illuminati shills that we're continuously being like having projected our way through their controlled oppositional networks. Those people don't interest me anymore, and I think they're gatekeepers. They're only going to let you in on so much information. But if you want to get like to the heart of the matter, you got to find the underground. And you guys were doing this work uh, for decades now, and I think it's totally profound. So I'm going to go ahead and let you take it away with this presentation. For those at home, buy Alex's books. You can go to his website, theaeoni.com, and pick up a copy of The Sun Lady Unveiled. The Baphomet book, there's some controversy that we'll get into maybe in a later date because there's legal issues regarding the copyright of the book because it was a book co-authored by Alex, of course, and Tracy. And apparently someone in Tracy's family has taken to issuing slap lawsuits and trying to intimidate people into not talking about her or her legacy. But you can still find her work out there. And I've heard that Tracy wanted her work to be shared. And I'm a great admirer of real whistleblowers and real activists who put their lives on the line. And I think the best thing you guys can do out there, the same way we got to support Julian Assange, and the same way we got to support those people out there like Richard Gage of Architects and Engineer for 9/11 Truth, is let them know they're not alone and they have our support, and speak up on their behalf. And check out his work. He's got tons of articles on his website that are mind blowing. He's one of the best comparative occult researchers I've found, and I look as often as I can. So, for what that's worth, you're not going to be disappointed with the voluminous amount of information that he and Tracy and others have put together. So anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox. Unlike this guy pictured here with the tau cross in his forehead and all types of symbolism. Take it away, Alex. Let us know what Enter the Mysterium is all about, please, sir.
Sure. So yeah, this fellow over here, he's a part of this Templar relics that Tracy was trying to decode, before she passed away, and we'll get into that with the Templar stuff more in depth, of course. But this guy, he has like a bunch of eyes, of course, and he has like a sun and the moon. So in the top, cross, and looks very chimeric in nature. And we definitely talk about chimeras in the book, the Baphomet book. And I think he's wearing like I don't know. It looks like reminds me of like a green man. If he's like a Celtic elemental spirit, or he's like a trickster spirit, basically. But it kind of reminds me of that. So, but the rest of it's fur. So, who knows? Maybe it's like a lion or something. But so yeah. So I just thought he looked pretty cool. So he's probably my favorite character of the all these Templar relics, or figures in these Templar relics. So yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and get to the next slide here. Let's see, pull it up here. So this is a trailer, so for the Baphomet book. So I mean, if you want, you can go ahead and play it on your end, Cameron.
Okay, give me one moment for sure, and we're gonna listen to this. Let me find. This is my. Be patient with us, guys. It's my first time using this new platform. A lot of bells and whistles. So, one moment. Let me find out. Okay, share screen. Okay, here we go.
He called her meat. He says this is what Baphomet is based on. And meat comes from metis, which is wisdom. And his interpretation of the word Baphomet was baptism of wisdom. He thought that was kind of a ritual that they were probably doing. We pieced this together from witchcraft traditions, certain Gnostic sects and their traditions. The idea is that the God of the Bible is an evil God. There's an inscription around this particular casket. The distinguished charity of meat uproots the enemy. He said that represents pederasty. So in other words, having sex with children. All right, and uproots the enemy. Who's the enemy? That's the God of the Bible. What I think this image is depicting is meat pulling the sun and the moon down from the sky, the heavens falling, basically destroying God's creation. The baptism of wisdom, which is a blasphemous ritual involving sex with children in this context, is what they thought would make that happen. What I think is that when the Templars were actually doing their rituals, they were using these heads. In every Templar preceptory, they had a head of some sort that they would use as their Baphomet. This is like what you would get if you put male and female, good and evil together in the same entity. They say he's the sun of suns and the moon of moons and the secret of all secrets.
Give me one moment here. The screen's kind of frozen up on me. So, wow, what a trailer! Tell us some
Yeah.
more. So these elite, they're obsessed with transgressive crimes against humanity and the rape and abuse and slaughter of children personified by here Saturn, I imagine that is, or Kronos, devouring yet another child of his. And who would the woman be in this image?
Ooh, good question. I'm not sure, but I
Maybe
think
Gaia.
Kronos had a wife. Well, I know Kronos had a wife called Araya, so it might be her. But yeah, I mean, you see different elitists, definitely personify all the attributes of Saturn. I mean, Kronos of Saturn himself is not really like an evil entity, but he definitely has a malefic side for sure. But Saturn is typically associated with like wealth and agriculture and good fortune and the golden age and all these good things, right? But Tracy talked about that quite a bit. I know she wrote Money Grows in the Tree of Knowledge, and she gets into chemical origins of money and what it all means, and it kind of connects to the sacrifice of future generations, right? The children. So, and then of course you see that happening, with Epstein, stuff that's come out, or as of late, with QAnon and all that stuff. But yeah, let's go to the next slide here. Let's blow up here. So that you see before you, his name is Joseph von Hammerstall, and he is the author of an essay, really long essay, Mysterium Baphometis Revelatum. Okay, and he was a very prolific writer, and he was an Orientalist, so he studied different subjects connected to the Orient, and not like what I mean by Orient, I'm talking about like in the Middle Eastern areas and even like towards the East, yeah, for sure. But he also studied like a lot of different languages as well, Oriental languages. So he was a bit of a Renaissance kind of guy, but he authored all kinds of stuff. So he also wrote a whole history or series of works also on the assassins, or the Order of the Assassins, which are associated with the Knights Templar. And he published that work back in 1818. Yeah, so up until Tracy's untimely death, so, like she was actually trying to publish like her own translation of this book, but it just took a while and she didn't really get around to doing it, unfortunately. But now, as far as like a lot of conclusions about Gnosticism, the Knights Templar, I mean, I have like different ideas, though. I have different views on these subjects, and she did a little bit. Although I do think she was definitely on. She did detect a lot of sordid details that happen with these cults, especially, of course, with the Knights Templar and, of course, the Order of the Assassins. But now, as far as were the Templars really doing pederasty and sacrifices of children and all these horrific things, or having sex with each other or animals or whatever? I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe. I mean, you never know. But nowadays, if you ask a Knights Templar, do they do these things? I mean, they're going to say no, But with Perkstall, he published this book in Latin, and I think, and I've read her translation, Tracy's translation. She actually got another guy to do the translation for her, but it's definitely fair for sure. Translation. Now, there's a full title to this big essay that Perkstall wrote. It's actually called "The Mystery of Baphomet Revealed, or the Brothers of the Temple Militia, by which the Gnostics and indeed the Ophians were convicted of apostasy, idolatry, and impurity by their monuments." That's that's a real title. So I mean, Perkstall, he was definitely well respected in his time frame, but he was a little controversial, I would say, or really highly controversial. So and a lot of his work, I mean, well, especially when it comes to Templars, it hasn't. I mean, it's far from being accepted as historical fact, you know.
Right.
Although I would say his work is deeply influential later on secret societies, you know, and also later conceptions of Baphomet, you know, with Eliphas Levi, with that black magician, you know, and later on into left hand path tradition, you know. But
Yes.
yeah, but
Well, it is interesting that in this age of Epstein Island being disclosed, and I'm not sure if you're aware of Rachel Chandler, who Q has brought attention to as a child handler responsible for trafficking all types of innocent people to the island. It's interesting that now this work was written in the late 1800s, I imagine, with Mr. Von Hammer Purgstall.
yeah. So, well, I mean, the reason why he got those ideas from is because he actually found these Templar artifacts. A lot of people claim that he just made it all up, you know, that he's a quack or something. But
Right.
he didn't make it up, actually. Come to find, and in fact, these drawings that these really strange drawings that he produced were or sketches were based on these actual Templar relics. So that's where he gets all these ideas from. He's trying to decode the whole thing, you know.
Can we see
So
can we see some of those artifacts?
yeah. So let's pull it up here.
And so these were discovered by him on the grounds of like a Templar stronghold, a former Templar area. Is that correct? Somewhere in France, or where exactly?
Yeah, okay. So it was a number of different areas. So it was definitely in France for sure. But I mean, the Templars had so many different churches, so it's like a collection.
Right.
Uh, Now, where he found it exactly, I don't remember. But I'll have to bring it up here. But
Sure.
let's bring it up. So this first person or entity is Meat. And she's definitely connected to Metis. It's a Greekism, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Meat here is like it's a compound goddess of different goddesses, actually. So like Cybele, Ray, Metis. I think I'm missing.
Addis,
But
or no, Addis would be the sun, right?
Addis is
That's
like the son of Cybele, yeah. But she, I mean, here she is. She's pulling down the sun and the moon, right? And there's like these
Diana, perhaps Ishtar.
yes, something along those lines. All these different warrior goddesses, right? So so they mix all into one figure of Meat, right? And so that to Perksol was one form of Baphomet, or the original form of Baphomet. But of course, you know, there's other forms of it as well. But no, that's on the left, right? No, the figure on the right is Isis, and she's from there's an image that was taken from a book called The Version of the World, or Cor Cosmo, which is very hermetic. But the only reason why I put her in there is because she reminds me a lot of Meat. So, and I think Meat also has some elements of Isis as well. So, yeah, so Meat is she's holding these chains, right, that connect to the sun and the moon. So, I think it was Tracy that was the one that said that the chains represent the archons that control the world, or the cosmos, or fate. And she's uprooting the enemy. So the enemy, if you ask any Gnostic, is going to be the Demiurge and the archons. So she's sort of like kind of getting revenge. So I mean, like they're definitely connected to Sophia. So like in Gnostic mythology, they talk about there's these two figures of, you know, Sophia and Demiurge, and the Demiurge is the one that created the world and the universe out of but the Demiurge himself has, you know, a progenitor, which is in Sophia. Sophia Akamos, she fell from the Pleroma in Gnostic mythology. But anyway, you know, those subjects of Gnosticism definitely influenced the Knights Templar for sure, and a lot of these other occult groups as well that came after the Knights Templar. So now the core Cosmo figure, this Isis figure, I talk about her in my book, The Sun Lady Unveiled, quite a bit. So yeah, definitely check that out. I also talk about the meat figure in my own way. So yeah, that Sun Lady Unveiled book, it took me maybe a year to kind of complete it, just to put everything together. So yeah, definitely highly recommend everyone to check that book out, even though it's not as controversial or dark as the the Baphomet book, but it's definitely pretty crazy though.
What has a lot to do with the Book of Revelation, yes, and some of the
Yeah,
symbolism associated. And so, from what I'm seeing, in the image on the right, it looks like she's standing within the cosmic yoni. Also, that she's stretching the lips of a vagina, and the moon would be centered about where the clitoris would be, which could be also in the tree of life, something like
yeah,
Pluto or Hades. And then she's riding on this celestial ark or bark or boat. Uh, which brings to mind so much symbolism regarding going to different worlds and portals. And so the sexual act, literally we can pull in souls from the chaos dimension or the unsorted or yet ordered dimension outside of time, and those souls can incarnate through this action. And it appears to me that they're using sex magic as a way to channel entities, good and bad, perhaps, and in their case, probably mostly evil, because it seems like they wanted to sabotage God's kingdom.
yeah. So, well, I mean, it's funny you bring all that up because we're definitely going to see those visual representations of what you just described. So let's see here. So now this is the actual active meat, right?
Wow.
That
And is this a
Perks
coffin
doll.
lid or some
Yeah,
type
it's
of?
it's part of a coffin. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So this is actually held in the British Museum, and Tracy found it actually, and she was pretty excited when she found it to me. So, but yeah, this is Cybele, but Cybele is meat. So I mean, yeah, they're all like compound deities, all kind of interconnect somehow, in some
And
weird way.
Alex,
But
today is the 21st anniversary of 9/11. Three sevens, kabbalistically synonymous with the cross. And then
yeah,
Cybele, she features three towers on her head. So the ritual of 9/11, that dark occult ritual, they destroyed three towers. Uh, like magic in front of everyone, and they use it as a means to destroy so many lives in the Middle East, and really invoke a new world. And the Solomon Temple, well, we have the two towers, which would be the pillars of Yakin and Boaz of King Solomon's temple, and then we have Building 7, who was probably seven, of course, is devoted to Isis. So the whole thing is this intense, insane ritual to these beliefs. And here we are on this day. That's the point I was trying to make earlier, is that we're highlighting your and Mr. Perkstall's work unveiling these monsters on a just so happens to be on the 21st anniversary of 9/11. So I think revelation and disclosure does have a weird I don't know, timing aspect to it.
hmm for sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know how much I want to say about 9/11, but I mean, that's definitely just a lot of occult, symbolism and ritual going on there for sure. And a lot of it does connect to the Kabbalah as well. With nine is connects to Yesod,
Mm.
which is a foundation, and then there's 11, which connects to Doth, which is like a portal to the abyss,
Right,
right? And
right.
then there's also 11 is also a degree associated with the with other occult groups like the OTO, and then you get to like really weird sadistic magic there over there, sex magic.
Yes.
Um, so I mean, were the Templars involved in all this? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know. But I mean, if you look at these figures, I mean, it just sort of hints that, kind of. Um, but let's see here. Then you have like those. Then you have that Golgotha skull beneath
Right.
her, Cybele as well. But I mean, like these relics, I mean, they were found in a lot of different European church locations. I mean, not just in France. I mean, I think they were found all over I mean, let's see, the Templars, they built a lot of different churches, so it's kind of like a variety of different places that Perksall found. So, but a lot of scholars are very quick to conclude that these are all forgeries. I think another guy, he wrote a book called on Gnosticism back in the 1800s. I forget his name, but he said that they were created by Rosicrucian or alchemical quacks or something along those lines. I think his name is Charles King or something like that. Yeah, but and then I think later on, but they were also owned by other kings, if I remember correctly. And then so I mean, really, like all this stuff that Perksall put out, I mean, it was sort of like the beginning of like presenting like this like there's sort of this vast Masonic conspiracy,
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it sort of all come from, from him, or he was like one of the beginnings of this whole idea, with the Illuminati and all that stuff. But I mean, these figures are, according to Perksall, they're not just associated with Templars; they're also associated with these with a specific Gnostic school of thought, which are the Ophites. And the Ophites were the ones that worshipped the serpent from Genesis because they thought he was a symbol of enlightenment or wisdom, right? So, I mean, you can say like they a lot of these Gnostic groups tend to like invert the Genesis tale, or a lot of not just Genesis, but a lot of other stories from the Bible in a way, for sure. But I mean, if you talk to a Gnostic, they'll probably say, "Well, we're not really inverting. We're just, we're just bringing out the true meaning of Genesis." Because like the idea that Yahweh or in that story was like a vengeful fake god or a demiurge. He's trying to withhold all this knowledge from Adam and Eve from from consuming the fruit of the tree of life, right? And he sends like a cherubim to block Adam and Eve from eating that. So, and of course, he warned Adam and Eve not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So, I mean, it's very complicated if you're looking into all this kind of stuff. But I mean, but meat, I mean, really just means, of course, sort of this Gnostic knowledge, and that's what Baphomet is. Baphomet just means to baptize, to be immersed in this kind of knowledge, this Gnostic knowledge, this divine knowledge. But this baptism is not just into like just airy-fairy kind of stuff. It's also into more darker realms, of the unconscious, really.
Yes.
As we will see. All right, so let's pull up the next slide here. So there's it's sort of like a group activity of these I don't know, Templars or Ophites. I mean, they're doing very strange things. I mean, if you look on the left, there's a guy holding the genitals of Baphomet. So it's like,
is that Baphomet as a herm, which is like a pedestal statue that would feature Pan with an erection, and witches and others would pleasure the statue and propitiate for offerings from it by committing sexual acts and putting their sexual fluids on it and so forth? Is that what you think?
Right. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. So it's sort of like a
Baphomet is getting a hand job from one of these Templars.
Yeah. So, or I mean, it could be Priapus, but yeah, I mean that's like what a lot of, well, at least with Tracy, she thought that figure on the left was the one that influenced the images that we see of Baphomet now, right? So yeah, so I mean, this is this whole big weird kind of orgy going on here. So I don't know. Very strange stuff, but nonetheless, it is real. So as you can see, it's not.
And this is in the British Museum
stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I think Tracy actually had to. You guys paid to have these photos taken because this was kind of like off in the back of the museum, right? It wasn't necessarily on display.
Yeah, it was right. I think it was Tracy who paid for that. Yeah. So
without
I
her,
mean,
we wouldn't have this image.
no, definitely not. It would just be locked away, the archive. So
Wow.
that's a lot of this stuff is, So I think there's like some animals in there somewhere in the back. I think there's like one guy riding like a I don't know, goat or something, or an animal. I don't know.
Mm.
Then so yeah.
Bestiality is certain implied.
For sure. And then I think there's a child in here somewhere. Let me see. Yeah, there's like there were maybe not child, but someone like holding the table. So next to the to whatever animal that is. So yeah, let's go to the next slide here. It's another casket. No. So there's this guy. I think he's wielding an axe or a shovel over like a small child who's riding a crocodile. Or some sort of not really the crocodile. Well, not a crocodile. I'm sorry, looking at the wrong one. It looks like an ox,
right? Which is associated with Mithraism, also the cosmic slaying of the bull or the tauroctony.
Right. So, then there's also, there's this bowl full of fire, And then so it looks like Mithras, kind of a little bit. Slaying the bull here.
Oh yeah. Yeah, very, very similar to other images of that I've seen in Tauroctony, various Tauroctony scenes, which are present in pretty much every Mithraic temple.
Yeah. So, the bull, I think, also represents Behemoth, and we'll get to that in a moment here. But he's definitely connected to Behemoth, the other god. There's what the Catholics call the other god. So there's Behemoth and Leviathan, which is also the same as this compound deity called, with Samael and Lilith, the adversary. But anyway, let's go to the next slide here. So no, okay, I'm sorry. This is the one that there's a child riding a crocodile. Very strange. What's going on here? So I mean, I'm trying to think why would a child ride a crocodile? Well, I mean, this idea, this Kabbalistic idea, or at least a idea of riding, using demonic powers to your bidding, comes from Solomon, right? The Legends of Solomon, where he had this ring to control these different jinn to build the Solomon's temple. And then of course Solomon was absurdly rich and he had all these women. But he's definitely like a figure that's revered by different occult groups, especially the Freemasons. But as you can see, they're doing all kinds of weird shenanigans.
It looks like he's kissing the ring of the figure in the center.
Yeah, it kind of looks like that. It kind of reminds me of that. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. And then this guy, I think he has an axe. He's holding an axe against that guy too. Yeah. So then I think there's a bird over here in the back. Or it looks like a wing coming out of one guy. I don't know. It might be an angel. It looks like a bird. I don't know. But I think what all these things are representing, just their initiation side, or what the Kabbalists call the Sitra Ara, really. And that's a whole other
what's that term again?
Up there.
What is the term?
The Sitra Ara.
How do you spell
Sitra
that?
Ara, which is Sitra AHRA, which is like it's like a Jewish term for hell, basically. So then there's another one looks like they're doing another little orgy here. I think there's some butt kissing going on here. I think there's
What is the
kind of
term
bending
for
over
that?
and trying to kiss some other guy's.
What's the
It's called
infernal
the
kiss?
Osculum in Flame, or the obscene kiss.
Yes.
Yeah, and you saw that earlier with that guy holding, or person, whoever it is, man or woman, but holding the genitals of Baphomet. Yeah. So it's like a you're prostrating to a dark god, basically.
There's some
to gain
double
its
entendre
power.
there, for sure.
Yeah, sure.
So the Yesod, the foundation, the sacral chakra being open to demonic possession through sodomy seems to be part and parcel of
So
there.
yeah, it's definitely part of the this dark tradition of magic, for sure, that you see in all this Templar stuff. I mean, really, what we're really seeing is just magical rituals, Let me see here. So there's another one. Looks like another orgy happening. Now there's a guy holding something over a flaming bowl or cauldron, So, and then let's see. Yeah, and then they're doing all kinds of weird stuff over here. And it was one guy bowing down to this other guy.
Oh yeah.
Kind of.
It looks like he has an axe as well. He's wielding some type of weapon, or maybe a skewer.
Yeah. Almost like, it looks like some sort of initiation ritual for sure. Yeah, like a secret ceremony.
Well,
we're kind of like viewing that. Mm-hmm.
And in those times, if you were homosexual, you were seen as basically a witch automatically. I mean, you would be stoned.
Oh, yeah.
So to participate in those rituals, you knew very well that if you were ever found out, that you could be killed and burnt at the stake. And so for them to do this would be heretical, and also it would give blackmail, just like we see with Epstein Island, that could be used to control you for the rest of your life.
Right.
So this is an initiation into a perverse cult that wants to totally dominate people through secrecy, like we see with all these secret societies. It seems like there's always a debased sexual ritual that's part of the initiatory process.
Yeah. But I mean, again, just connect to. But I mean, it's very intentional, though. It's not accidental. And the reason why they do that is because they're trying to key in to the other side.
Yes.
For darker forms of power, basically. Let me see. Or at least become like some sort of initiate on that journey of initiation. But now, then there's this one guy who's being baptized in this bowl, right? And then there's an owl. Kind of reminds me of Bohemian Grove.
Oh yeah. And Moloch.
So yeah, he's being Moloch, right? So then he's being baptized into the mysteries of the cult of the order, basically. So that's what it kind of symbolizes to me. Then let's go to the next one here. And then here's a bull. Yeah, here's another bull image. So everyone's sort of like, look at it, kind of like worshiping this bull.
Oh yeah.
Kind of like from Exodus, when Moses casted down the law, the tablets that Yahweh gave him, because he saw everybody was worshiping this calf.
Right.
So it's definitely connected to that, for sure. So I think, this is basically an Ophite Gnostic ceremony that we're seeing. I think a lot of different other groups also worship bulls. I mean, that's a fairly common practice back in ancient Rome, So whenever it's not just worshiping a bull, like you actually have to be baptized in its blood to receive like the proper Mithraic initiation,
Yeah. So yeah, that's something that they would perform. it was pretty common in the biblical times, right? Like they would cut a bull's neck, and somebody would be underneath it, and they would baptize you and cover you. So imagine that scene. You cut a bull's jugular, and someone is being completely covered and baptized in the blood of this slain animal while they're doing a ritual, prostrating themselves, looking for some type of remuneration.
Yeah, yeah. Like if I mean, if you see the movie Alexander the Great, the from what's his face, Oliver Stone. Yeah, with I forget his, I'm so bad with names here, but Colin Farrell, he played Alexander the Great. But but yeah, there's a scene where right before this big war that they sacrifice a bull, or multiple bulls really to gain favor of the gods.
Oh,
Yeah. And there's another show called Rome that came out on HBO a while back, and it's all about that too, Mithra or Mithras. So yeah, Mithras is very much interconnected with this whole story as well, which was as we will see. And then there's another cast, this last one of a dude being roasted alive.
in his body position, the way he's bent backwards reminds me of kind of the art you see at Tony Podesta and Jeffrey art, quote unquote, with Jeffrey Dahmer's corpses.
Yeah, so it's like the arc of hysteria. Yeah, that's what I called it. Yeah. So I know Tracy talked about it quite a bit.
I think this is at a Clinton fundraiser. So let's see.
I think it was Podesta's brother. I think John Podesta who owned it. But but yeah, you see these two guys who they're lifting hands, worshiping sort of like unseen God, whoever that God is. Now here, from the Revelatum document, so these are different figures related to meat, right? So on the first one, you see all these different Ophite worshippers. So they're having a party with all these snakes, right? And then you see this other figure next to them, whatever, it looks like a chimeric kind of androgynous sort of demon, I guess, And then right next to his son with some, looks like a homunculus coming out of the jar. So and then he's also riding some sort of eagle.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, these are all like symbolic representations of initiation, really. I mean, that's what all it really means.
In the homunculus, that's kind of like the magical child or the moon child, where perhaps through torture children are made disassociative, and then a demon is said to kind of take over where their soul would have been displaced. Something like this.
That. Yeah, I mean, like this. I mean, there's other ways you can. I mean, that's like maybe the more hardcore version of that. But I mean, I've seen other YouTubers explain how to create like a servitor or a homunculus, where they put a bunch of ingredients together. I know they mix milk into a jar and just let it sit, and then you're supposed to like talk to it, like expecting like to get a like a response, But I mean there's multiple ways you can create like a homunculus. But now at the end, or sorry, at the bottom here we have meat. Different forms of meat. So you have, I think it says in Arabic, this is what I got from the Templar document, or this Baphomet document. It says, in the Arabic, it says, exalted or omnipotent meat you are denying. You were even seven, our race. Then it says, then it talks about how return to the rectum is useful or something like that. It's like I'm like, who knows what that means, but it has something to do with anal sex, I'm sure. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, the whole document's so insane. I mean, like I couldn't even come up with any of this stuff, you know. It's like, you know, I'm just a messenger. Like I'm just repeating what's in this Templar document that
certainly a lot.
that Perksel wrote.
Definitely, there's certainly a lot going on here. So you've got the figure on the left who appears meat-like, but maybe is a different incarnation. He has horns on his head, whereas on the right we have Cybele with the three towers again, and looks like they both appear they could be androgynous. And then there's a woman between them pouring water out on a candelabra. I forget what's the term for the Jewish candles that they use ceremonially. I forget the seven candles representing the archons.
It's the I forget the name of it, but yeah, I know. But it's a Jewish candle, yeah.
Yes,
like he's pouring out the water over these candles, yeah.
And
it's candelabra.
Candelabra. So that would be representative of the seven planets. And so during this period, you know, people were known to see astrology as a means to connect with these archons and invoke them. And again, you've got the chains linking heaven and earth on the right side. This is and then of course above, like you said, all the various serpents. The serpents, they could be representative spirits, perhaps the jinn, or you know,
yeah. Like you can think of it that way. Like I know in darker forms of the Kabbalah talk about the serpents in the abyss. You know?
Yes.
There's a guy named Nathan of Gaza who wrote a book called The Treatise of the Dragons, and he talks about that quite a bit in his book. But I think you can find some translation of it online, but very expensive price on Amazon if you decide to look at that up. And actually, I think the term actually is return to the rectum is made easy. That's what it says in the document that Perksel wrote. Yeah. So pretty weird, to say the least. Let's see. So you have
menorah. That's the word I was struggling for. The menorah.
Right, menorah. Yeah. So that's what that lady's doing. So now this is Jesus and John the Baptist, and they're doing the Baphomet pose that you usually see, you know, and you also see other figures like George Washington do that, other Masons, you know.
Yes.
And then you have John the Baptist. Like look, he kind of looks like he's doing a disco dance, kind of.
He's staying alive.
Yeah. So so he's doing like the Mano Pantia with the hand of blessing. So they're all doing it. And that actually connects with a deity called Sabazeus, actually. And he's also said to do a sort of this hand of blessing figure. So that comes from a Greek god, or Thracian god, actually, called Sabazeus. He's like a compound of Zeus and Dionysus. Yeah. But we'll get to that. This bunch of images I found of Baphomet, and so you see on the right here Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny. Then on the left you have the Masonic Baphomet, riding the goat ritual, and of course the usual satanic version of Baphomet. Of course, I think there's only one really version of Baphomet, really. But if you talk to like a Luciferian, they'll just say Baphomet is really more like a symbol or a glyph of initiation of infernal power or balance of duality. So there's a lot of Luciferians and Satanists will say that, So now Eliphas Levi in his he wrote a book called Transcendental Magic. So here's what he says about Baphomet. So he's the one that actually made that drawing on the far left there, by the way. But he says there exists in nature a force which is immeasurably more powerful than steam, and a single man who is able to adapt and direct it might change thereby the face of the whole world. This force was known to the ancients. It consists in a universal agent having equilibrium for its supreme law, while its direction is concerned immediately with the great arcanum of transcendental magic. So this agent is precisely that which the adepts of the Middle Ages dominated the first matter of the great work. The Gnostics represented it as the fiery body of the Holy Spirit. It was this object of adoration in the secret rites of the Sabbath and the temple under the hieroglyphic figure of Baphomet or the androgyne of Mendes. So, in other words, what Levi is getting at is that Baphomet also represents like this magical force called the astral light, and he equates that with the universal agent. So it's like I think you can think of it sort of like a vril, So I think there's one guy, I forget his name, but he wrote a book called The Coming Race. Then he talks about this race of angelic entities called the Vrilia, and then they're underneath our planet. Well, they're in the inner Earth, but they have this power to like reshape reality. They're this power called the Vril. So like you can use it to heal, but you can also use it to destroy. So it's like a sort of like this double-edged sword in a way. So that's like the form of magic that they're practicing. Sorry, Dad.
Well, so from what I gather, they're talking about worshiping the substrate of existence, which is this inherently balanced between the dualistic framework of good and evil, light and dark. They're worshiping and applying that force through magical rituals. And I remember reading some of Tracy's breakdown on the Baphomet, which I thought were fascinating. So you see that he's sitting on top of a cubic altar, which is sitting on top of it looks like half of an earth or some type of sphere. Then you've got the caduceus with the two serpents representing that polarity, like Jachin and Boaz. And then they are superimposed on top of an arch, which seems similar to the royal arch of Freemasonry. So the keystone would be linked from above to below. And if you use the human body, you could say from the crown chakra to the root chakra, or the tree of life from Pluto to Yasa or Malkuth, actually. So this idea of uniting hermetically heaven and earth, above and below, inside and outside, through these rituals and summoning this force, Baphomet. And I like that she pointed out that it looks like Baphomet is, in fact, transgender, where the phallus, similar to Osiris, is recreation, is something inorganic, like a magician's wand. And so they themselves are so identified with this non-dual understanding of reality, or rather dualist understanding simultaneously, that they become united. And then that has to do with the origins of, well, Adam and Eve, of course, and maybe they're having mated with Lilith and Samael. So this is all really fascinating stuff that I know you got into in Baphomet. And it appears that the Masons are a clandestine magical sect derived from these practices that initiates people in a compartmentalized way to control them. And by and by, they're given different keys for understanding this magical philosophy, if you will.
Right. So, I mean, like, I'm not trying to attack any order or secret society. I mein, I'm not against like total like how I hate Masons or whatever. But I mean, it's the stuff is it's out there. All you gotta do is just look it up online.
Yeah.
So I'm just
we're not attacking anybody. We're not attacking anyone. We're just presenting ideas and information, which is our right. We have the right to try to understand reality as much as anyone else, and especially when those forces are involved in things like assassinating, democratically elected presidents like John F. Kennedy in a Kabbalistic ritual in Dallas, where the oldest Freemasonic lodge is figured, and where George W. Bush was present on scene. So these people who are involved in Freemasonry, you really need to know what you're getting into. They're not going to tell you all this in the porch degrees. They are very skilled and adept at lulling people into a false sense of security and then pulling the rug out from under you. And so anyone who asks you to be blindfolded in a ritual, you should be wary of. That's my advice. I'm not a Mason. I've worked closely with Masons, and I can tell you they are not very forthcoming. Uh, and they're trained to, like the double-headed eagle, speak out of both sides of their mouth. And they see that as really advantageous and therefore justified. They see that if you're not an initiate, it's your own fault that you're profane, and that if you can see the guy there, getting poked in his butt by Masons gathered around him and the goat, and this kind of tongue-in-cheek dismissal of, oh, it's so silly, we're not really doing any of this. Well, maybe at the higher degrees and in secret they are. And if you look at the history of the Knights Templar, as well as what's being implied here, and if you look at different satanic sects like the OTO, absolutely they're performing rituals involving sodomy. And so the goat is associated with that. And of course, most people, they're trained apologists. It's like listening to like Biden's current press secretary. She's unflappable. You could. It's amazing to watch people just bullshit endlessly, no matter how you have them dead to rights. They're just not. They're never going to admit it. This is the thing with psychopaths and narcissists, and I think a lot of these secret societies, they're inculcating a sociopathic worldview in their followers, where you don't ever have to be accountable. And as long as you can repeat some ready-made apologia, you're fine. And we see where that leads. So, yeah, I mean, we're not attacking anyone, but we have the right to point out that, look, maybe this isn't the way to go. And if people are not transparent from the outset with you, chances are they don't have good intentions for you.
For sure. I mean, now, when it comes to like that, Baphomet, like if you look at like Kabbalistic literature, talk about the Tanavir. I mean, there's a book called The Treatise of Lethemination, and it talks about how it doesn't talk about Baphomet specifically, but it does talk about this figure called the Tanavir. It's kind of like this intermediary figure between Samael and Lilith. So there's that, and we definitely talk about it in the book for sure. So yeah, let's go to the next slide here. You might like this.
Nice.
Some funny memes. Just kind of get some levity in here, So
this is great.
Everything's so serious, It's it's an anniversary of 9/11, so let's just be a little funny here.
I mean, there's so much that can be said about Pepe and chaos magic and the good side of magic, where there was actually, they called it dubs, right? When Q first appeared on the 4chan boards, somebody had posted Donald Trump will win the presidency, and they had these random numbers generated with each post, and it had like 7 sevens in a row. It was ridiculous, and people are like, oh, it's a prophecy, but in a way it was true. So Pepe means a lot to people who've been following Q from the beginning, like myself. And to see him pulling out his mighty Excalibur against this cuck face with the cube of Saturn and
Right.
Baphomet and Klaus Schwab, who we all know wants us to eat bugs and be slaves and not own a damn thing. I love it.
Yeah. Pepe is cool, man.
I'm down with Pepe. Duncan Trussell's afraid of Pepe. It's so funny to see people like, these kind of like popular Satanists, and I don't want to say that Duncan is a Satanist, but he damn sure, I've heard him say Hell Satan quite a few times. And I've heard him, he had Damien Eccles on his TV show, his cartoon. He had him on his podcast. A little too comfortable with covering up for people that are convicted child rapists and murderers like Damien Eccles. So, I mean, maybe he can bring that up next time Joe Rogan has him on his show. I sincerely doubt they'll do anything other than just dismiss it and say, oh, conspiracy theory. And the whole clown show of it is funny to me because these guys, they came in like they were like independent. They never were, and they're connected to a lot of shady people. And I'm frankly sick of seeing these people given so much influence when all they do is sell Satanism in different
Right.
forms. So yeah, Duncan, if you're not a Satanist, go and get a Pepe tattooed on your forehead.
Duncan. So what's his? Is that his first name or his last name?
His first name is Duncan, and I don't have
Okay.
anything against Duncan. I think he's actually super
Okay.
funny and like very intelligent, but he's pushing psychedelics. He's
Oh,
pushing
okay.
the agenda 100%. And I don't have anything against psychedelics per se. Just like with any of this information, I think we need full disclosure. Let's talk about the acid casualties. Let's talk about MK Ultra. Let's not turn it into conspiratainment where you really nothing. You're not advocating for people to do anything other than kind of be a hipster. Uh, when people are dying, people are being told to, inject themselves with experimental medicine. I'm just over it. I remember when these guys were not nearly as popular, and so to see them gain this massive following, which is not organic, and to see how it all connects to Rogan, and then to see that, oh, look at that, they're friends with the Church of Satan, Anton LaVey and his progeny. So
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah, Damien Eccles. I mean, I watched a lot of his stuff, so I mean, he does have a lot of good stuff, but he's definitely associated with a very, very dark crime. So and he made a whole career out of it. So
Yes.
each their own, I guess. Let's see here. Let's go to the next one. This next image, this is this one guy. I think that's really Solomon, but some people think that's more like the Kabbalistic image of the Tsar Anpin. So what that means is it's like it's just a fancy word for Adam Kadmon, I think, or they call it the lesser countenance of God. And you see different figures like Metatron in the Kabbalah, or in Enochian literature, he's like the lesser Yahweh. It was kind of like that idea. But the reason why I have this guy, he's surrounded by the Ouroboros, and there's two other Ouroboros figures over here. One of them in the middle, it comes from an earlier text, alchemical text. I forget which book it is, but I know there's a lot of different figures that you definitely used the Ouroboros to represent a lot of different things, including not just, of course, it represents Leviathan, it also represents this idea of the sum of all philosophy. And then I'll just read my notes here so you know what I'm talking about. So this is actually a quotation taken from the Baphomet book. And it says here, the Corpus Hermeticum tells us that a soul entering a physical body is being, quote unquote, baptized or immersed into the inferno of matter, which is represented by the lustful pleasures and pains of the flesh as a form of punishment. So in the Ophite diagrams of the universe, as revealed by Celsus and Origen, the archonic realm of matter is surrounded by a circle labeled Leviathan. Now, the Ophites are said to have viewed Leviathan as the soul of all things, alternatively, the soul that travels through all things. It is the equivalent of the Ouroboros, the snake swallowing its own tail, often used to represent the barrier between the cosmos and eternity, or the beginning meets the end, and engenders a new beginning. So it says here, the image was popularized by Cleopatra the alchemist, 3rd to 4th century author of the Chrysopoeia, or gold making, who described the Ouroboros as the sum of all philosophy. And here's another quote. Now, this is from a quote that I'm going to read from my own book called The Sun Lady Unveiled. And I wrote, Jesus' role in the Pistis Sophia is described as a savior descended from the realms of light into the sphere of fate to free the righteous from the demonic powers of the zodiacal regions and the dragon that circles the sphere of fate. It says here, Jesus actively works against the dark arts brought on by these demonic powers and slay the human soul by binding it to a counterfeit spirit. And it says here, this is confirmed by the Pistis Sophia, who also portrays Jesus as a high priest and makes various invocations to the Father, along with his disciples, Thomas, Andrew, James, and Simon the Canaanite. So yeah, so there you go.
Interesting. So just to paraphrase, Leviathan would be kind of the substrate of reality as we know it, that we're embedded within when we become incarnate, and that Jesus is this spirit like a bodhisattva that returns to prevent that domineering reality from executing, I guess, karmic law in a way that, you know, could enslave us forevermore to the fates or
Yeah,
to the archons.
right. So, like the Leviathan is also, I mean, you can think of Leviathan as even like it encloses the fixed stars, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to see that very soon here. So yeah, Jesus is, you know, is viewed, you know, in a very positive light in early Gnosticism, right? But
Mm-hmm.
but when you see, like, you know, look at what the Templars, you know, confessed to or accused of, like, you know, they were accused of, you know, blaspheming the cross and pissing on it or spitting on the cross, or, you know, stuff like that. So, but it's definitely part of that initiation, right? To get rid of your former life, your former. I mean, just in any sort of like connections with like traditional religion, I would say, the outer religion, to like the inner mysteries of this dark chaos magic they're involved in. You know, so that's how I kind of interpret that.
So you're saying that it could liberate you from the entanglement with these dark forces.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, well, I mean, with the temple, it seems like what Perkisol is saying is like it's like they practice like an inverted dark form of Gnosticism, you know, because originally, you know, Gnosticism wasn't really like that, you know, but it only became like later on it took like this dark form of it, you know. So that's what I think is that what Perkisol is saying. But at the same time, when you read the Church Fathers and their writings on these different schools and groups of these different Gnostics, and like some of them, like the Ophite specifically, you know, were involved in rituals involving serpents, you know. So, or like, I mean, whether there were orgies or not, I mean, I don't know, but a lot of these church fathers sort of imply that. I think it was Epiphanius that specifically said that, you know, there were a lot of these groups were involved in that. So, and Epiphanius, he was like an Orthodox bishop, but he was saying that a lot of these groups, like the Fabianites or the Barbelites, they were involved in eating their own emissions as a form of
Wow.
A mass or like a sacrament. So, but or also involved in eating like not so much like babies, but or like an aborted fetus in a sacrament, like a dark sacrament. Yeah. So, but they took the aborted fetus and then they mix it up with like honey and pepper just to make it more palatable to the senses, to your taste buds. Yeah, it's pretty gross, but
Wow.
but I mean, go ahead.
Well, I've heard something similar when I was younger. I happened upon this book about the Agori, which are this kind of like left-hand path sect of religion, Hindus in India, and so they would eat all manner of cursed and decrepit thing as a way to initiate themselves into the understanding that everything is everything. And that's kind of what you see with these esoteric systems in the West also, is that, well, if everything is made of the same thing, then it doesn't matter what you eat, because you're just recycling the energy that is the substrate of reality, or Leviathan. And so And so, but it just seems like you said, a very perverse and inverted way to get that philosophy across. And I've heard it in Buddhism as well. One of my favorite martial artists, he describes how, he became enlightened and he would hang out with a lot of Buddhist priests. And at one point, they were all reciting their favorite platitudes to that effect that, we are the enlightened because we realize that everything is made out of the same energy. And so he took them to task. They were at a festival and he had seen some vomit on the ground. And he said, well, hey, brothers, now's the time to walk your talk. Go ahead and eat that vomit. Since you're so enlightened, go ahead and scoop up this drunk's vomit and show me. And I think he actually ate a little bit of it right in front of them.
Oh my goodness.
spooked them pretty good. But, I mean, that it's kind of, have you ever seen that one guy who, he stuck his arm up in the air for like 30 years. So he's got this withered like tree limb just jutting out, and he's got crazy locks down to his butt. And he's revered for being like so devoted to God that he just never put his arm down. But to me, that just seems like ridiculous. It's like cutting off your nose to spite your face, rather than saying, well, I'm so beyond the physical that I can just mortify myself totally. And it's like, well, that's one way to do it, but I mean, is that why you're here? Is that the purpose?
Yeah.
And maybe it was his particular, I mean, he has free will, he can do whatever he wants, but I mean, I'd much rather be able to use my arm and help people than just walk around saying I'm a testament to, yogic beliefs.
Right. So yeah, I mean, all that stuff is just you're trying to like key into like the negative side of existence, basically. I mean, that's what all the stuff is meant for, all these rituals and stuff like that. But let's see here. So this is this figure. There's a Zeus, and then there's Metis that's coming out of his head. So that's where Metis comes from. Then she's kind of like reaching up to this Hebrew character, Yod. Yeah, you have the two pillars behind them. You have like the four cherubim, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The four living creatures, and then below. Then he's like in front of this or behind this a figure called the perfect man, or the it's a person in a Arch of Hysteria posture. He looks like he's like an Ouroboros, basically,
Right.
So he's like, so if you remember earlier, so the Ouroboros is the sum of all philosophies. So in a way, like, yeah, he's considered like he is the perfected man, the zodiacal man. So let's see here. Let's go ahead. And then there's another guy. Yeah, there's a Zodiacal Man by Michael Rhodes. So I found that on Tracy's site a long time ago.
Interesting. So you've got a human being taking the form of the Ouroboros. Also in the Secret Teaching of All Ages, I think he was describing that was like the earth was like a man who, being a culmination of the 12 signs of the zodiac, it becomes enlightened through passing through this reincarnation cycle, through the ages and through time, and each of these different aspects of God or of personality. That's kind of like the PG version, but you see that same Arch of Hysteria, and it could just be the inversion of Satanists as well, where Jeffrey Dahmer decapitates his victims and would pose them like this, and then it ends up hanging from Tony Podesta's wall, ceiling. Amongst a litany of outright pedophilic images of young girls and boys, and this is where they would host fundraising. This is where people like David Brock and Alephantis would gather to raise money for. At the time in 2016, the Podesta brothers were the most powerful lobbyists in DC, and John Podesta is a pedophile, and that's what the WikiLeaks revealed. And so we're in an insane era where the people who've been practicing this black magic, they're being unveiled by Q. And so no wonder the mainstream media is scared shitless, and that they have to, try to denigrate and chastise anyone associated whatsoever. But of course, thank God for people like Michael Flynn, who outright stated on the 4th of July, I think it was in 2019, maybe 2018, he took the oath of the Constitution of the United States of America, and then he and his family all signed off with "Where we go one, we go all." So they're afraid of these terms because it's a counteraction to their negative magic where they're trying to brainwash and gaslight people into taking experimental vaccines that are now we have an increase of all-cause mortality of 40%. That's never happened before outside of something like a plague event, a real plague. But even then, when you look at the origins of, say, the Spanish flu, it's linked back to the Rockefellers. So these people are evil. They think they have the right to cull us periodically. I think it's just a larger scale version of the same types of sacrifices we're seeing supported in these in the allegories of these initiatory diagrams. So make of that what you will. 21 years ago, 3,000 Americans were slaughtered in a diabolical Luciferian Thelemic ritual on 9/11. And I went to New York on the 10th anniversary, and I was there, and New York was completely changed. They turned it into a United Nations outpost. They'd always planned to do this. They operate with these city states that they create to dominate, like a kind of like a black uh, embassy, so that they have the ability to control the world through these outposts. And I'm very thankful that they're being exposed. And I hope all those people and their families can wake up and speak the truth about 9/11, because until we have justice for those crimes, we are susceptible to these monsters.
Yeah, that's a whole big subject, but yeah, all these things are just definitely tied to rituals for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Ritual. So this is an Ophite bowl that we talk about in the Baphomet book, and so I'll just read it from. This is like a quotation that I'm going to read. So and what it means. So basically, this is an alabaster Ophite bowl that was found in Syria and was dated from the 3rd to 4th, the 5th century. So there's a scholar by the name of Kurt Rudolph who wrote a book called Gnosis, The Nature and History of Gnosticism. And he says that there's some controversy of whether or not this is it was real, but it actually is real. They did verify that. So, there's also some controversy of whether it belonged to the Ophites or if it actually belongs to the Orphics, which is like a mystery cult of Greece. And of course, that's prescribed to by a figure by the name of Orpheus. There's a lot of similarities, Orpheus and Jesus too, by the way. But the Orphic religion was very Gnostic in nature, so a lot of people think that maybe they preceded Gnosticism or they directly influenced Gnosticism. So then here's what we wrote. It says here, let us consider what we see depicted inside this bowl. We see a serpent surrounded by 16 naked initiates arranged in a circle, each making an obscure ritual hand gesture towards the snake as if in veneration. Then it says here, Hammer Perkstall references a passage in the Corpus Hermeticum, or the Hermetica, referring to nothing less than a baptism of wisdom. So Egyptian Hermeticists use a cosmology similar to that of the Gnostics, and likewise taught that there was redemption through Gnosis, as you will see below, but they can be distinguished from Gnostics by the fact that they held a relatively positive view of the Demiurge and his creation. Therefore, rather than condemning him for imprisoning mankind in the bondage of ignorance, they gave the excuse that this was merely a test to see which were aggressively enough in seeking wisdom to be worthy of it. So the Corpus Hermeticum allegedly recurs the wisdom of Hermes Trismegistus. So in that book, the Baphomet book, so we connect. So we talk about Hermes quite a bit, but also in that book, we talk about this discourse from the Hermetica. It's called the discourse of Hermes to Tat on the mixing bowl or the monad. So, and Hermes explains that the father of all didn't that didn't give the nous or the wisdom or the divine intelligence to every person born to the world. So rather, he put it in a mixing bowl, which he sent down from heaven. So he intended that for each person to complete with, to basically, it's a form of initiation. So basically, like Hermes was like that form, that was a figure of that initiation. You're supposed to, immerse yourself in the mixing bowl. Then it says here from the Hermetica, it says, if your heart has the strength, if it believes you will rise up again to the one who sent the mixing bowl below, if it recognizes the purpose of your coming to be. So then, according to Hermes, all those who heeded the proclamation and immersed themselves in mind participated in knowledge and became perfect people because they received the mind. So basically, yeah. So the Ophite ball is connected with this, with the bowl of Hermes, this bowl of mind, right? And then, so Carl Jung, his wife was by the name of Emma Young. So she wrote a book called The Grail Legend, and I'm gonna quote it right here. So it says, "I think of that vessel filled with nous, understanding, and consciousness, which is mentioned in the Corpus Hermeticum, and that, as Hermes taught his pupil Thoth, was sent from heaven to earth, so that men plunging into it might understand the purpose for which they were created. A vessel of this kind also played a part in the Gnostic mystery celebrations of the antiquity. In Hans Lissengang's study, the mystery of the serpent, an illustration is given to a bowl that appears to have originated in an Orphic community. So on it, 16 naked men and women in reverential and worshipping attitudes stand around a coiled and winged serpent, the symbol of the Redeemer and the Son of God in the Orphic Gnosis. So in this bowl, the logo serpent is clearly being worshipped by the initiates. So yeah, so they thought that the serpent was Jesus,
Huh. And I've heard that interpretation, and there's Kabbalistic reference to that. So, for instance, Nahash is Hebrew for serpent, and it also transliterates into 358, which is associated with the Fibonacci sequence. And so, for the Pythagoreans and so much of the those who worship number in all its forms as the mind of God or the nous, they have a way of interpreting this version of Jesus where he is Lucifer, he is the light bearer, and the light is the rational logos of the awareness of sacred geometry. But it's not just in mathematics, it's in scripture. And what it represents in that regard is you have the priests who are the initiates who have the understanding of what it means, and they can choose to wield it however they see fit. So they can cloak themselves as either light or dark and change sides at will and keep the laity or the lower level initiates in suspense and manipulate them to do their bidding. And so that's where I find that this stuff is very dangerous, because when I first got into sacred geometry, I said, wow, this should be taught in every school. And while I do believe that, yes, you can learn a lot from using a compass and straight edge and discerning and linking left and right brain and coming to understand what our ancestors were really involved with the creation of the Gothic cathedrals, which they were able to manifest through these, I guess you'd say, inspired diagrams that are a byproduct of wielding the compass and the straight edge and geometry. But sadly, it appears that it's a lot more complicated than they would have us believe. So, it's some of these temples, they're designed to be destroyed, like, say, the Solomon Brothers buildings, and you could say that's just the work of inverted Satanists, but it seems that it could just go whichever way the people at the highest level decide it's going to go. And if that means sacrificing a bunch of people to get that energy to feed the egregore, the gods that they serve, they're willing to do that, because in their cosmology, everything is everything. So again, what's the difference?
Right.
If you eat a placenta, or if you eat a fetus, or if you sacrifice someone to get into the Illuminati, it doesn't really matter, because it's all made of the same thing. And that's a very terrifying aspect of these these guilds is that, you know, if you keep pressing and asking questions, eventually you're going to come to the place, well, are you or are you not willing to sacrifice yourself and others? I guess the pure form of Jesus would be he's someone who sacrifices himself, like the pelican ripping its own breast to feed its young, that the Rosicrucians utilize. But then that same cult is involved with spreading this ritualistic magic. And they even, you know, they use igni natura renovatur integra. So they have this idea that through fire, nature is wholly restored, or in other words, through sacrifice. And I was rereading Baphomet, and one of the chapters you had written, you were describing how, you know, these gods, they're obsessed in the Old Testament with blood sacrifice. Like they want the fat for the smell and the blood of the animal. So what kind of God needs man to make blood sacrifices of the animals that God created in the first place?
Right. Yeah, that's
Just,
that's argument, you know, used against, you know, gods like Yahweh, you know. So yeah, he's always trying to smell. He likes the smell of like burning fat, you know. It's like, I mean, like people say, you know, an atheist will say, like, what, you know, what kind of God is that, you know? Like,
yeah.
is that like the true source, you know? But I mean, the subject of Yahweh, I mean, it's very complicated, very convoluted. But yeah, I mean, maybe we'll talk about it another time. But but yeah, Yahweh is definitely this multifaceted figure. I mean, yeah, a lot of people will say, yeah, he's like a lot of Gnostics will say he's evil or he's a demiurge, yada yada. But I mean, but Yahweh is also like he also has like a light side too. Like he's called Sabaoth. He's like the Lord of Armies, right? And Sabaoth is also a title used for a specific deity that we will see right now.
Well, so
Which
with
is
Yahweh,
Abraxas.
I've heard Yahweh described as an elemental computer. You know, it's like this impersonal force that, well, not necessarily impersonal, but it has this dualistic aspect. You know, the like Yakin and Boaz. You know, it has mercy and strength, and so
Right.
depending upon which we call upon, that's what is invoked. And yes, it could be that that is the reality of being entombed in this world, so to speak, is that you can call on those powers and you're responsible for the choices you make. But is that the ultimate God? And didn't the Gnostics say that there was a God outside of the pleroma?
Yeah, it's like the monad, like the first ion, or the biathos. So like that's like the ultimate, the source, you know, the source of the pleroma. But over here is Abraxas, and then you have this other another Abraxas like figure with a penis. So this is actually a statue that was found in the Vatican. It's an image, of course, an illustration of a statue, but it's called the Savior of the World. And these other two figures are Abraxas, of course, and Abraxas is very much interconnected with the Gnostic religion. So, and we talk about all these images in the Baphomet book, and of course, the Knights Templar used the image of Abraxas quite a bit in their seals when they were sending messages to each other. So, you know, that's like a smoking gun right there. But you know, Abraxas was used a figure to ward off evil, I would say. It was like an amulet, basically. But Abraxas had his other name for Abraxas was Sabaoth, so he's definitely connected with Yahweh too, strangely enough. So there's a guy named Thomas Wright in the 1800s, and he wrote a book called The Worship of Regenerative Powers. So, you know, this chicken guy, you know, with a literal cock coming out of his mouth, I mean, that's like, it represents like this male kind of generative kind of energy, you know, that you know, all men have, right? But it's like it's like a divine power basically trying to invoke. I mean, that's what, and people like there's this lady called Acharya S, if you ever heard of her, but
Oh yeah,
DM
Diane
Murdoch.
Murdoch. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if maybe it is Diane. I don't know. I don't remember her first name, but yeah, she wrote a book called The Christ Conspiracy.
Mm.
But on her website, she was talking about that image on the left, and she was saying that this is an image that is connected to a Priapus, which is like a Greek god with a giant penis, and it was always erect. So, but it's definitely part of their mystery cults. I mean, whether they're probably doing the sex magic, who knows? But what's also really crazy about that figure, say the world figure, is that it's actually connected with Saint Peter. So Saint Peter is depicted as Abraxas with a giant cock. So Peter is like a euphemism for cock, for dick.
Right.
So you have that going on, and Peter was actually a title used in the ancient world for these different Roman and Greek gods, including, of course, Zeus, but other deities like Apollo and Mithras and Baal. Yeah, they're all Peters or Peters. And Peter is another form of pater, which of course does mean father.
Yes.
And pater was also a word for the priests of these ancient mystery schools, or they're called interpreters of the mysteries, I would say.
Total. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so Peter is the cornerstone of the Catholic Church, right? He's seen as the lineage that gives them their just right to carry forward what they see as the doctrine of Christ. And so this is how the mystery schools operate, is that they have multiple definitions, and as you gain initiation, you realize that there's a multivalent structure of correspondences that allows you to really interpret it as you see fit for the moment. So and if you're unaware, you see this in the court system too, of legalese, and how they've co-opted a lot of the American court system with certain terms like person or motor vehicle. So when but the Fourth Amendment gives us the right to travel without being, unduly arrested or seized or, harassed. They have to have probable cause in America. But what they've done is they've come up with this color of law, I guess you would say, false doctrine that they've superimposed on top of the Constitution, and they trick us into getting licenses. So just like the Catholic Church selling indulgences, they go, well, we'll let you commit the sin of driving a motor vehicle if you get to pay the prerequisite fee and you get a license, because now you have our permission, and you have to register your vehicle with the state. Well, Regis and register, Regis means king. So you're giving the title of ownership to the king in order for the privilege that you already possess as a sovereign in the United States of America. So there are all these ways that they've secretly kind of superimposed a fake world, a matrix on top of our reality, and they are usurping our rights all the time. And it's as you learn these different definitions, so you say, okay, does this mean that the chicken rooster cock deity is actually the foundation of the Catholic Church?
Yeah, no, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is.
So I'll just read a little bit from the Baphomet book. So it says here, Acharya S found a rare actual photograph of the Savior of the world, presented as an image of Priapus in Otto Augustus Wall's book called Sex and Sex Worship, Phallic Worship, a scientific treatise on sex, where it states that it was found in an ancient Greek temple. She also quotes an article called Priapus, can't pronounce this word, Galasius, the role of the cock in fertility and eroticism in classical antiquity and the Middle Ages. And then by Dr. Lorraine Beard, where it says the object was published under papal and royal authority, exhibited for a time in the 17th and 18th centuries, and is now said to be held inaccessible in the secret collections of the Vatican. So during the public life of this bronze, officials disagreed upon the probity of the exhibit. So one offended cardinal requested that the object be removed. It says here, the Vatican saved her as a phallic cock was a scandalous satire on early Christians. So yeah, there's a lot of different satires that I come to find shockingly. Well, not shockingly, but there's a lot of satire going on in the ancient world for sure. So, like in the Baphomet book, we talk about this figure called this donkey god, and this donkey god or an ass god was like some I think it was like a church father, but Tertullian. He says that a lot of these Gnostic groups thought that this donkey god was like symbolic or actually the real form of Yahweh. Like because so like they thought that whenever like the Jewish high priest entered the Holy of Holies, and then one time I forgot where he says, Tertullian says this, but there were this rope with a bell, and if you went too far into the Holy of Holies, and then if you didn't show, if you weren't there, like there were some other priests like holding onto the rope. So if you wouldn't show up, if you didn't come back from the Holy of Holies, then they would know that you're dead. So they just like pull you from the Holy of Holies, because if you didn't like prepare yourself to meet Yahweh,
That makes sense. Well, I've seen also where the cable toe that Freemasons use, they have I think it's, don't quote me, but it's I think the Mark Master degrees. So when they start telling you about Solomon's temple and descending into the crypt through the keystone to the negative clipothic realm, and so they wrap this around your waist for probably just that case, just in case you don't manage to survive the revelation that you're going to meet the devil. You're going to meet the infernal powers by going along this path. And you could be shocked into stupefaction. And I think in Baphomet also you describe how some of the Templar knights that saw the apparition of Satan, that they were basically unable to smile thereafter. They were stricken with like the lack of joy for the rest of their existence incarnate because of this horrific form that they had the temerity to summon.
Yeah, Tracy. She put that in there, but it makes sense, So, but
I believe it.
But according to but for what is it? Well, that donkey god, a lot of these Gnostics thought that that was like the true form of Yahweh. It's crazy. So, whether or not that's true, who knows? But now this is an agape feast or a love feast that is an image that these early Christians would engage in. So it's kind of like modeled after the Last Supper, right? But a lot of these Gnostic groups, they had like their own version of this agape love feast. So they weren't just eating. They were engaged in forms of sex magic and orgies and stuff like that. And in the Baphomet book, we talk about how there's a guy named Simon the magician.
Mm-hmm.
So he would also engage in tantric kind of practices, and he was a guy, of course, that Peter admonished, rebuked, for trying to bind the powers of the Holy Spirit in Acts, right?
Right.
So in the Baphomet book, we talk about what Perksall was saying in that document and what the Ophites were doing supposedly. I'm not even sure if the Ophites really practice it, but Perksall certainly seems to think so. A lot of scholars will say, that's just hearsay of the church fathers, and this is just they're just trying to make all these Gnostics look bad or whatever. But whether or not it happened or not, I don't know. Maybe they did. Then it says here. Now I'm going to quote a little bit from the book. So it says here, the Greek word for seed is sperma, which is another example of the metaphor being used in something called the Gospel of Eve. And Epiphanius quotes from it. It says here, I stood upon a lofty mountain and saw a man who was tall and another little of stature, and I heard as it were the sound of thunder and drew high to hear. And he spake with me and said, I am thou, and thou art I, and wherever thou art, there I am, and I am sown in all things, and from wheresoever thou gatherest me, but in gathering me, thou gatherest thyself. So kind of connects to what you just said earlier, with the Agories and all that. So
With the what now? Oh, the
with
Agores, yes.
yeah. So I mean, this is a very cannibalistic idea because in Loriana Kabbalah talk about how the light of the Ein Sof is basically spread throughout the universe because we'll get to it, but basically the Sephiroth and the Tree of Life, they hold all this divine light, but they were just too weak. Well, not weak, but I mean there was just so much light in the Sephiroth that they broke, they shattered. So now all this light is like spread across the universe. So now each job of the Kabbalist is to absorb this light through like different holy acts, right? They call it like the mitzvah.
Right.
So
Right.
all these different like prayer or whatever, but anything that's considered like holy and good, you're supposed to like transmute or alchemize that light back to God, basically, in a nutshell.
Interesting.
But a lot of them, but I found like this idea though is like it's present in a lot of different groups, like in Gnosticism. You see that in Hinduism too. So yeah. But now, the Hindus like Shiva Agori is like they do it in a more negative way, I guess. But yeah, they're pretty crazy, man.
I mean, it's philosophically enticing to think, we're gods who have forgotten our place. And I know that they sell this idea of perfecting oneself, becoming an illuminist by undergoing these rituals and reconnecting with the divine but then also you've got the fallen angel motif where, are we supposed to eventually escape this realm? How are we able to do so? Is it through the
Right.
mitzvahs? Is it through purification? Or is it the dark path where you become a god of this world and you're
Yeah.
willing to sacrifice others and manipulate them? And even, the firstborn sacrifice, yeah, that's Yahweh to a T. He's telling everyone. I mean, the whole Passover ritual is, if you are opposed to me, I will kill your firstborn. And so a lot of
Right.
fundamentalist Christians, they go, well, yeah, because they're the bad guys, and God's saying you have the right to kill in the case to stamp out people who are opposed to the quote unquote true faith. But I mean, why would God need to perform genocide if he's God? Why couldn't he just snap his fingers and lay waste to them? Why does he have to encourage his own offspring to commit murder, which is, in the Ten Commandments, that's the first, commandment, thou shalt not kill, right? I believe that's the
Right.
first commandment. So
Oh, I
it's
think it's like I think it's actually like not
worshiping
to
other
keeping
gods.
the Lord is or to keep something about the Lord, to worship the Lord, or not to put other gods before him or something like that. Yeah.
Let's see, I'll look it up real quick. Ten
But
Commandments. And
but
this is mhm.
mhm. Oh, sorry. No, I was
Yeah.
just gonna say
No,
that.
you're
Yeah,
right.
but
You shall have no other gods before me. So no
right,
polytheism. You shall make no idols. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Keep the Sabbath day holy. Honor your father and your mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness. Excuse me. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet. So the irony is that Freemasons, they allow their members to have this mask of piety where they
yeah,
pretend that they're on the level and they're on the square and they're seeking harmony. But the reality is, as soon as you get to the seventh degree, they're like, look, you can go ahead and bear false witness as long as it's a Mason.
right,
So the irony then is that they allow you to worship whatever deities you want. So it violates the 10th commandment right there. You shall have no other gods before me. But in a Masonic temple, you'll have the Quran, you'll have the Bible, you'll have the
hmm
you know probably the Zohar, and depending on where you go, you'll see that all of these are allowed to be worshipped. And then you look into theosophy. I've been speaking with Joseph Atwell, who's done really amazing research along with others like Anthony Chaikin, and I can't remember the gentleman's name. I think it's Jeffrey Spring or something like that. But revealing the formation of the Theosophical Society, how it led to the creation of Zionism and World War II and Nazism.
Oh wow,
So,
interesting.
so it's very dangerous stuff because they have this hidden doctrine, but they espouse this kind of open-minded, comparative religious study. but the goal being to overcome Christianity, as well as. But here's the thing: from my research in Christianity and Joseph Atwill Caesar's Messiah, it was the Caesars who wrote the New Testament. It was the Caesars who hijacked the Gospels and created the rabbis, and they're using Kabbalism
Hmm.
throughout. So, there's a paradigm shift. There's a twist for you. So, is it that we're at the brink as we enter this new age, that all of religion is going to be seen in a new light, and we have to decide for ourselves what God is and how we will proceed? I think so, and I think
Something like
it
that.
may something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what what's his face? William Cooper. He was talking about, like, we're in this gigantic initiation process through the Hegelian dialectic.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
through you get this outcome. This. So, which is the outcome is the unveiling of the Luciferian religion, the new religion. So it's like the merging of the East and West, basically.
yeah. You sent me a.
But
You
anyway,
sent
I
me
don't
a.
want to get too much into. So,
Go ahead. So this agape love feast, where is this? Is this inside of a temple? Or?
Yeah, it's like an image. I think it's like I forget where it is, but I just thought I'd mention that because it is present in the Baphomet book. So,
And could you speak up
but
just a little, or get a little closer to your mic? You're a little hard to
oh,
hear.
sure. Can you
There
hear
we
me?
go. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So I'll talk a little bit louder. So you have all these guys doing. It's just like a communal feast, but but of course that's taken to mean later as more a little bit twisted. So I mean, the thing is, like, accusations of impiety and all this kind of crazy stuff. I mean, that's fairly common in the ancient world. So I know that a lot of the pagan Romans thought the early Christians were doing all this kind of blasphemous stuff too. Because I thought they were like an alien cult. They even referred to them as atheists. They didn't believe in the Roman gods. So
Right.
I don't know, crazy stuff. But
Heretics.
heretics, and then of course that sort of mindset. Then of course there were the Christians were definitely persecuted, and then that sort of mindset was transferred over to the Roman Catholic Church. With against the heretics. So yeah, it's very, very negative stuff, but it is what it is. It's part of history. But so then this is like a map I was going to mention earlier. So you have Sophia and Paranoia, and then you have Leviathan, you have Behemoth, right? So these two powers basically control our material universe. So we're just trying to like worm our way out of it, basically. But the paranoia just means is the opposite of paranoia. So it says, this is from Wikipedia, where it says here, a person suffering from paranoia feels that persons or entities are conspiring against him. A person experiencing paranoia, on the other hand, believes that the world around them conspires to do them good. So the belief can be irrational belief subject to medical diagnosis or an enthusiastic spiritual belief. The word entered the scientific literature in 1982 and was popularized by the Zippy movement in the 1990s. And I looked at the word up, I was like, what's a Zippy? So what a Zippy is actually is a this kind of this hip, kind of a 90s hippie, but except that a 90s hippie were involved in like raves and trance and drugs and all that, the whole club scene. So that's what a Zippy was basically in the 90s.
Huh.
So they were involved in like they were advocates of plur, peace, love, unity, respect. So I mean, I'm definitely not attacking ravers or anything, but I just thought that paranoia, what that I was doing research on that, the paranoia term. So like, oh, that's interesting. But paranoia is like, it's definitely like this divine aeon in the pleroma as well. But if you like look at it from a more earthly perspective, that's what it means. Also, but yeah, there's all these different archons within the realm of Leviathan and all these different angels in the realm of Behemoth.
Mhm.
So, yeah, pretty fascinating. And then here's another diagram here. And then I have the different aeons in the pleroma. You have the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, which is very Christian, of course. You have nice knowledge, prudence, love, and wisdom. The gate to paradise, and you have the different archons that control, fate in the universe. So this one is from a book called Gnosticism by Mary W. Berry. Yeah. So let's see. Another Gnostic Ophite diagram taken from Talmus Erasmus. They wrote a book called Paradise Reconsidered and Gnostic Myth-Making, Rethinking, Sethianism in the Light of Ophite Evidence. So this is another really fascinating book. It's a very expensive academic book, but if you're interested in Ophite Gnosticism and all that stuff, so definitely pick that up. Really good book. Here's another Ophite diagram. All the pleroma, there's Leviathan, and then again with the different planetary powers of the archons, and then beneath that is the behemoth that controls the earth, and then Tartarus. So I mean, like, it's kind of like there are like layers of reality. There's like different heavens, and the Ophites were said to have like these different prayers and rituals you're supposed to ascend through each different layer of reality. There's another one. Now this is the Tree of Fire diagram of Simon the Magician, and he had his own Tree of Life diagram too. So it makes me think that the Tree of Life is far older than a lot of the Kabbalists will even say. I don't think it's really a Jewish thing. I think it's more of a mystery school thing, really. I think it comes from ancient Egypt. But I mean, what? And we'll get to that. But here's the. Then you have the different aeons again in Simon's tree or diagram. And in Simon, it's funny. He's like, he thought of himself as some sort of like a counter Messiah to Jesus. And a lot of people think, Jesus is Simon, or they're all somehow, yeah, but they're both the same. But I kind of think like they're different for sure. So for Simon and Jesus. And then, of course, Simon was actually baptized in by John the Baptist. You see that in the Clementine literature. So, yeah, Simon was initiated in the Egyptian mysteries, and I think Jesus was too. A lot of people seem to think he was initiated in the Egyptian mysteries. So, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now here's the diagram, right? The Tree of Life, or two diagrams really. So let's see here. So both diagrams. So one of them has all these different angelic names ascribed to each of the sephirots or stations of power on the Tree of Life and the glyph. So, I mean, the point of that tree is supposed to you're supposed to initiate to each glyph or sephiroth, right? And from each sephiroth, you're supposed to gain some sort of wisdom or power, right? So, in Masonry, Freemasonry, like I think they definitely use the Kabbalah for sure. So, like, in order to become like a 33rd degree Mason, I think you also have to successfully go through like these Kabbalistic initiations in the Sephiroth, as well as the Qliphoth, actually. So, I mean, that's what I'm thinking, but I'm not a Mason, so I could be wrong. But I do think that it's definitely part of it, along with something called the tunnels of Set. Okay, now these 11 spherotes or sephirotes, they correspond with the 11 shells of the Qliphoth, which is like a dark form of the Kabbalah, or the shadow, the tree of death. So, and Thoth is the hidden shell, which is sort of like the passage between the red and the blue, the passageway between Gabora and Chesed. Strength and mercy, or judgment and mercy, or charity. So, and then now there's this is something called pathworking. So, and that's like what a lot of these magicians do. So you have to go through each Sephiroth to gain each power. So in each, now there's also different pathways to keep in mind, and they're all represented by the tarot. So this is like the Hermetic Kabbalah, so which is different from what you see in more traditional versions of the Kabbalah, like you see like the Zohar and the Sefer Yetzirah and all these different texts, right? So, and you see that, in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, they have their own version of the Kabbalah. But I mean, really, what it comes down to is like it's a astral interdimensional structure that's been existing since the beginning of time. And according to the Kabbalists, we're all keyed into this tree, whether you're aware of it or not. So you could be traveling the tree without you even realizing it, or because it's a part of your DNA.
Wow.
Something like that, So whether you're conscious or unconscious, you're still traveling within that tree, according to a lot of these occultists, right? So they kind of view it as like this self-development process where it actually involves in dissolving the ego. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fear with what Freemasonry is. I mean, again, it's connected with the Kabbalah, it's connected with Egyptian mystery, religion.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's also this darker aspect to this whole thing as well, and in a lot of the lower degrees, really in the Freemason, you're given this task to accept more light. You're trying to you're a brother of this group, this order, and you're trying to get more light, basically, right? From darkness to light. And I mean, I think that's like the axiom of Q, right? From dark to light. QAnon. So
on one level,
yeah.
for sure. It is a psyop, so I do understand that there's going to be double, triple, quadruple entendre, and they're actually teaching people in a way how the mystery religions operate by teaching those methods with their own dispensation, with their own instruction. And so in this case, dark to light, we've got to think, well, yeah, we've been taken over by a death cult that does things like 9/11 in plain sight, and then uses that as an excuse to try to dominate all of us with the total information awareness and the total surveillance, and just now we have the COVID-19 attempted mass genocide. I mean, it's been successful in some degree because we have the 40% increase in all-cause mortality. We've got YouTube and all of these companies, big tech, that are outright censoring anyone who speaks out against them, deplatforming them, pushing the social credit score, pushing a gulag existence onto all of us. And you had sent me an image earlier that I maybe we can do a quick screen share, because it was a Masonic diagram, and it was describing how the light of Lucifer was kind of the culmination of the Hegelian dialectical ritual that they're pushing on us. And so it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They believe this, and it's not something that you could ascertain without becoming an occultist necessarily. Like, they say, here's the framework for reality. And you go, well, how do you know this? And like, well, it's in what is it? What's the Kabbalistic text? The Zohar.
Zohar, yeah. Uh-huh.
And so this all goes back to Judaism, and that means it all goes back to post-flood, pre-biblical musings and religious conjuration of Semites and previous to Semites, Babylonians. And so it is very odd. I mean, it's possible that it's true. We have these kind of anachronistic artifacts like the pyramids. The Great Pyramid encodes the dimensions of the Earth with accuracy rivaling modern satellite surveys, and that's covered in the film Cosmic Patterns and Cycles of Catastrophe, which I made with Randall Carlson. I did all the animations. I produced it. all the compositing, the authoring, the production, you name it, I did it. And I helped illustrate these mathematical realities embedded within the Great Pyramid. And then it also encodes the dimensions of light, the speed of light, in 3 different ways. So clearly, our ancestors had a high scientific awareness. And when you realize that Atlantis did exist in some form, it could have been a global diffusion of culture where these supposed enlightened priests were having pyramids be built all over the planet, with maybe the goal being advanced geomancy, astromancy, and pursuit of more light. But then you have the darker aspect that could have led to the destruction of the world as we know it with the fall of Atlantis. And so, it is a mystery, and I just want all sides to be heard so people can decide for themselves. Like, all right, do we want to continue to let dark occultists push us around and tell us that we have to see life through their lens, or can we understand what they're saying and still offer a new path where there's no human sacrifice involved? There's no need for secret societies that speak out of all sides of their mouths and confound and confuse while they supposedly enlighten. That drives me away, honestly. But I didn't mean to interrupt and go on a tangent there. Just how do they get these diagrams? How do they know that they're effectively true? I think it comes back to sacred geometry as well.
For sure. I mean, really, I mean, everyone's life is like an initiation. Really, it's a journey. So,
Right.
and the goal is to complete that journey, so you can fully live out your purpose in that incarnation. So it's kind of like a video game, but it's way more complex. So the Kabbalah is sort of like the study of the matrix, and to master the Kabbalah in its totality. So you can take mastery over the world around you, So that's what these people use. So to key in to control the world, and then there are a lot of these people who are quote unquote, masters of the temple of this technology. And you see its symbolism show up like almost everywhere. It's everywhere. Like you see it in the media, it's in movies, video games. I mean, there's all kinds of initiations going on here, So, so I mean, just quite a few more slides to get through here. So I try to be as fast as I can here, because I have to kind of wrap things up here, though.
Take your time. We can always do a follow up. We're at about 2 hours now, but I've got time, so I'm sure people will appreciate it, and we can make clips of this later too.
Okay, so and then this one is like the another image, a Kabbalistic image from Carl Stone. He wrote a book called "The Moon Child of Yasod," and oh man, so then there's different levels of the Godhead. There's Ein, then there's Ein Sof, and then there's Ein Sof-er. It all connects to this limitless light of the pleroma that the Gnostics talk about, and you're supposed to key into that so you can become the master of the temple, attain the Gnosis.
Right?
It is connected to the uncreated light that the Eastern Orthodox talk about, I think, and I'm working on a project that kind of elaborates on that more in depth. So we'll see.
So the uncreated light, like something like using chaos, bringing the chaotic aspect into formation.
Yeah, the uncreated light is something that these Eastern Orthodox hesychast priests are involved in. You're involved. You're constantly praying. You're constantly purging yourself of sin. So you're trying to reach holiness, a state of holiness, so you can attain the vision of the uncreated light. So it's very Kabbalistic, in my opinion. But the Eastern Orthodox are very mystical sect of Christianity. And I do like them. Well, I have nothing against them, but it just has. I just think they have a lot of correlations with a lot of these ideas as well.
Fascinating. So the Eastern Orthodox Christian Church has a lot of parallels to Kabbalism, is what you're saying.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's just so many. But but I'm working on a project that outlines all that. But we'll see how that goes. But But yeah, here's the other half of the tree of life. So you have all these different paths, connected with the tarot as well. I tried to like fix the at the end there, but oh well, then wasn't very too successful.
That's all right.
Here's another tree, two other trees. Then there's two Adam Kadmons, and it says I found these two images, but it says at the bottom there, it says realm of Klipoth, scalings of impurity, shells, demons, Gentiles. So basically,
Gentiles.
So yeah,
Goy.
the Klipoth, yeah, the goy, the stupid puerile goy, yeah,
The Hylix.
Hylix, right. So there's a lot of those people, yeah. Unfortunately.
A lot of them on TikTok.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're all over Twitter. The what's it called? The woke mob.
Yeah,
Man.
totally.
Then these are the Golden Dawn diagrams I found online. Well, not online, but they're using. Well, I did find online what I'm talking about, but they're both. Well, they're all images associated with the Golden Dawn, but the one in the middle is by a guy named Osmond Spares. He was like a chaos magician. So he sort of like modeled his version of these two diagrams, but basically they're just showing you what the creation of the universe and the fall of man. So on the left hand you have the supernal Eden, the image, the visual representation of the supernal Eden, and then on the left you have the fall of Eden, right? So on the figure over here on the left you have like so supposedly it represents the woman clothed with the sun from the Book of Revelation, which I talk about in my book. And then below that, in the middle there, is Adam and Eve holding up these pillars, the negative and the positive pillars, or the masculine, the feminine pillars. And then below them is the dragon from Revelation as well. So it's kind of like an egg, basically. So and then on the right you have the dragon escaping his prison, and he's kind of like attacking. The tree of life, really, like he's escaping into the universe A from universe B. So, and he's taking over the universe. And then above that, you have Yahweh and Asherah, the Shekinah, being split apart as well. So there's this division, between these universes. And then you have, of course, like the four living creatures and all that. So yeah. And then in the middle, it's kind of the same. It's sort of like modeled after that image called The Fall by Osmond Spare. So pretty fascinating. But if I had, it would like take like another hour just to like unpack all the symbolism going on here. But you have they also have the flaming sword from Eden that kind of blocks off the dragon and Adam and Eve from returning to the supernal Eden. But of course, if you talk to a Christian, Jesus is the one that allows you to enter into the supernal Eden. So the Kabbalist life in action. So why do I keep talking about the Tree of Life in the Kabbalah? Well, it's affecting our reality right now. So you have these are two tweets I found. You have Joe Biden, right? If everybody remembered that, his crazy speech, against the MAGAs, So it says here, two flags symbolic of the pillars of Boaz and Joachim. The USA flag is the middle pillar. The red backlighting is key. See how the lights on the floor lead to the left pillar, Binah, the rose color. This is magic. And then the right says the queen lighting up the tree of life and activating the DNA strand. So the queen, which queen I'm talking about, it's the Queen of England, you know.
Yeah, finally.
So I don't think I'll play it because I'll mess up this stream here. But
oh yeah, I'll bring that up real quick.
Yeah, so you can go ahead and play it if you want.
Sure thing. Let me open this now. Yeah, this is bizarre. I'm glad you shared this with me because I hadn't seen this. Okay, here we go. Brace yourselves, everybody. You're about to see some real occult stuff. Oh, wow. That's not exactly what I meant to do. 1 second. Let me choose a different. I forget that effect. It's kind of like dimensions within dimensions. There's a word for it. Okay, there we go. All right.
Your Majesty, the Commonwealth of Nations globe.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. So,
and
I mean, sorry.
Oh, I was going to show one more video of the queen going through her initiation as a druidic witch. So showing that she's of the line of druidry, if that's the proper conjugation, I don't know. But it is quite interesting to see how seriously they take all of this. So let's do that now. Okay, share screen. And boom, there we go.
Did you know in 1946, before Queen Elizabeth was coronated, while she was still princess, she was initiated into a druidic order? This is very rare footage that the House of Windsor has done everything they can to censor. The Queen wore green to signify her rank in the order. She was called an Ophite or seer, similar to the oracles at Delphi. This is pretty strange.
So yeah, there we have it. You know, so she's a druid priestess, and you know, she's activating the tree of life in the previous video we saw. So man, tell us about that, Alex. What's going on with this ritual lighting the tree of life?
Yeah, so I mean that's like that's a purple scar. Yeah, it's a purple sort of like scarlet cube, and then she's manipulating this astral interdimensional structure of the multiverse, which is a tree of life, and and that represents this matrix that we're in. So it's all symbolic. I mean, like, why would they go to those pageantries to do all this? So this is for a reason. So, and I think her death is a sign that the multiverse is about to start going through some really big changes here. And there are new elites starting to pop up here, all around the world right now, as you can notice, as of late. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, crazy stuff.
Oh yeah,
that's how magic works, I guess.
Well, we are the supercomputer. We're the ones with the ability to collapse the waveform, and maybe that's what separates us from the fallen angels, is that in this world we have the ability to, by measuring, by observing, change reality, whereas these other entities, maybe they're barred from that, so they have to hijack us, they have to co-opt us to do their bidding, and they do it through these elaborate performances where they pretty much put spells on us and expectations and color our worldview so that we become mannequins, we become puppets to their desires.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Do you want me to go continue on?
Sure.
Okay. So here's Alan West. As a Templar I found. So he's now a Templar. I'm sure there's others that are like him. You know.
I was
have
really
nothing against him,
disappointed to see
it's
that.
just interesting.
It's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
it's all right. But so I mean, I really don't have anything against these people, but it's just, you know, you have to, once you dig deep into all this stuff, you kind of just patterns, you know. So
Well, it's interesting. That's what he says. He took an oath to protect the Christians in the Holy Land. And, you know, that's not what the Knights Templar were doing. That's just a cover story.
Right, for sure. Here's a London Mithraeum.
Wow.
And yeah, and that's been reconstructed. I think Michael Bloomberg, and I think Tracy talks about Bloomberg quite a bit in her work before she died. But that's, you know, it's funny enough, that's in London, you know, and I'm sure the British royal family are quite aware of how this Etheric magic works, you know.
Oh yeah.
Funny memes here that I found online.
Punch Nazis.
Oh man, it needs some levity,
great.
man. Here's Klaus Schwab under writing Prince Charles.
Wow, looks like the von Hammer Perkstall effigy a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, basically. Oh man,
the more things change, right?
Yeah.
Punch Nazis, I love it.
Yeah, E.T.
He's got a little clown
Clown
horn.
World. Clown World.
Clown World.
the clown Pepe is escaping the woke mob. You know?
Nice.
Oh man.
Who's the only guy I don't recognize is like the dude in the back with like the khaki shorts and the flip flops.
Yeah, I don't know who he is, but he's like saying bye. I don't know. He's like adios.
Brilliant.
Oh, man. Funny. Whoever designed this meme should wins like internet award.
Oh yeah.
Of 2022. Oh man.
That's modern art, man.
Yeah. So, and now speaking of World Economic Forum. So this is the deity of WEF, in my opinion. This is the Rubensal. This is the Green Man or the Wild Man.
Mm.
And Rubensal was, it's a horned deity. You know, it's kind of like all these meat kind of figures. You know?
Mm.
So he's like a deity of the mountains. So, and of course, the WEF is in Davos, Switzerland, right? And he's like, and this deity is also very much intertwined with Switzerland folklore for sure. And look what happened with that opening ceremony. You know, wow. With Gotthard in Switzerland as well, back 2016. So, yeah, another Baphomet.
Well, Got means goat, just like Gotham City means like goat city.
Yeah. So the goat. It's like imagery is like in a lot of different places. Yeah, I kind of have to get going, but here's but this is like an image of Saba Zeus, and of course comes to Saint Peter, and Saba Zeus again is connected with like Zeus, and Dionysus, and this is but also the Thracian horseman of Saba Zeus is connected with Saint George, as well, that defeats dragon. So there's that. And Mithras as well. And then Cybele, again, and Attis. So now Cybele is the one that is sort of like considered to be like the mother of ancient Rome. And again, she's like the one that lifts up the chain, the sun, the moon, and the pentagram and all that, the 7-pointed star, skull. So, and Cybele is said to rule over like fertility, the mountains, fortresses, and her crown was shaped like a city wall. as well. So it's kind of to me she represents the Empress card of the tarot deck. But her followers call her the Mountain Mother, and that all these sacrifices were offered to her on mountain peaks, kind of like the Rubensall spirit over there from before.
Right.
And also Yahweh was also offered sacrifices as well on the mountain peaks as well by the Samaritans. And then of course there's Attis over there on the right, and that's the son of Cybele. So and Attis was born on the 25th of December as well. So appreciate it. Jesus is this crucified hero god, and Cybele's annual festival was celebrated the death and resurrection of Attis as well. So so again, like the initiates into these higher mysteries, they were baptized in the bull's blood, kind of mentioned earlier. So like they're like reborn in eternity, I guess, you know. So and that happened during the March equinox.
That's when they would perform those rites.
Right. So I mean, this figure definitely influences like the figure of like the Whore of Babylon that you see in the Book of Revelation, and I talk about it quite a bit in my book as well, the Sun Lady Unveiled. So check that book out, definitely. It's a really good follow up to the Baphomet book. Now the Sun Lady Unveiled, I mean, that's more based on the Book of Revelation, but in my opinion, I think that book is very Kabbalistic and zodiacal in nature. And then here's some interesting images I found online. The Vaticanus. So the word Vatican comes from vatis, which means a prophet or soothsayer. So it looks like a serpent soothsayer. It's kind of reminds me of the serpent from Eden, right?
I've never seen that picture of the Vatican with the snake body.
Yeah.
Wow.
So interesting, huh?
Fascinating. And so what does it say? St. Peter's Basilica, Church of Satan, serpent tail, serpent body, keyhole, serpent head, eye, mouth. Yeah. And then you've got that infamous image of the Pope with, it looks like, you know, Jesus as it's all carved out of wood, and it looks like Jesus is being tortured. And then the whole building looks like the inside of a
snake.
A serpent. Yeah. Vatican forked tongue pathway. Yeah, so it's this religion of lying and deception, and it cloaks itself in piety, and it's got untold amounts of wealth, and the only real true resistance to it that I've ever seen in my lifetime, and recently, has been Q. You know, Q pointed out that there's these three pillars that have been running the world, the three sides of a triangle, and the Vatican is one of them. Then it's the Rothschilds, and then it's Soros. And, you know, they're trillionaires, and they of course, they conjured the monetary system through the aid of Baphomet, the Templars did, and through usury, they've enslaved the entire planet. And so when they say you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, that's their declaration of intent. That's them saying, you know, prepare for the return of the age of Saturn, where you're all our peasants, and we can do with you whatever we want. And that's their mastery. And then they sell it to their initiates like, oh, well, you're going to become this illuminated master of the universe. It's like, well, you're going to become a corporate whore denizen of Satan if you prefer, you know, material succor to and succor, I should say, to a righteous path where you want to actually eliminate poverty and actually liberate people from these false gods. So, wow, what an image. This reminds me of Serpent Mound in Ohio also, which is one of the largest serpent effigies on the planet. So it makes me wonder, is this cult connected to the fall of Satan in the form of a comet? And maybe, you know, it seems like it's all kind of mixed together somehow that I'm still trying to parse and understand. But please continue. This is mind-blowing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of Protestants will say that, you know, the Catholic Church is like the home of the Antichrist and the false prophet. And I talk about all that stuff in my book. I mean, like I talk about, you know, how there's an apocryphal book called the Book of Ezra, and it says that the Nephilim, or the Titans, or no, I'm sorry, the Antichrist is a Nephilim or Titan. So, and that's what that book says. So I think of Saint Michael, who gives that piece of information. So to Ezra the prophet.
I see.
So pretty crazy. Now here's the Leon Tessephalion. No, sorry, the Leon Tessephalion, and he's a line-headed deity. He's a part of the Ophite Mysteries, and he holds the key. Notice he's holding the key to the kingdom, right? It's kind of like what Saint Peter is supposed to do. And then in the middle you have Mithras, and you also have Eros or Phanes. So part of it, they're all connected to this sort of like the same mystery. I mean, they're worshippers of Sol Invictus, so they're all representation of Sol Invictus, or like this. So yeah, it's very complicated, but all these different definitely influenced the Roman Catholic Church for sure, and Gnosticism quite a bit. And
Well, speaking
we
of,
talk about Mithras in the Baphomet book. Okay.
I was going to say, speaking of encephaline or cephaline, it's linked to the term encephalitis, which is an inflammation of the brain. So I just looked this up real quick and just wanted to add this little piece. Let me find that. Chrome tab. There we go. Okay, so encephalitis, inflammation of the brain from encephalo, the brain, plus itis, inflammation. So right there, we go back to your document, and you can see the cosmic egg is potentially a brain. Like if you looked at somebody's head from above, you could. This is like, Athena bursting out of Zeus's head. This kind of awakening or new god that's created through conjurations of the supercomputer of the brain that we're fortunate to possess in this world. So I thought that was just another way to look at this, because Leon, lion brain, would fit in with Hammer Perkstall's Met idols easily. So anyway.
For sure. Even though he's not in there, but yeah, he should be in there. See, but yeah, Mithras is a definitely deeply influential figure for sure. And then as a figure of Saint Michael too. I mean, there's a lot of parallels with Michael the Archangel and Mithras, and I point that out in my my Sun Lady book, and of course, you're right again. And then, that statue is also found in the Vatican as well, the Vatican Museum. But the Feline, I mean, it's not an evil god necessarily, like, because the Mithraeus thought he was like I think the good Demiurge, right, or the Mithraic Saturn. So they definitely try to appease this deity, unlike the Gnostics would. But he definitely influenced also the figure of the Gnostic Demiurge, because he's a lion-headed serpent, but he's also interconnected with Yahweh and Saturn. So, and then in the Sun Lady, you talk about how the Archangel Michael is described as this commander of the army of the Lord in Joshua. You also see that in the Book of Revelation as well, where he casts out the dragon from heaven and the great war in heaven to defend the Sun Lady, or the mother, or the woman clothed the sun. Yeah, the mother of the Lord, basically. Yeah. But so yeah, he represents the forces of light that attacks the forces of darkness. So he's kind of like Mithras. So he's also like a uniform. He's like the patron saint of like police officers and soldiers in defense. So I mean, he's definitely useful in those regards. He's like associated with justice. And here he's standing over like a dead soul. This is an icon of Michael, an Orthodox icon that I found pretty interesting. Now there's an interesting story by a saint, but his name is The Life of Saint Hubert, the bishop of the Avranches. So it says here, one night in the year 708, the Archangel Michael appeared to the bishop in a dream ordering him to erect a sanctuary on Mount Tombe. At that time, the mount was a remote site far from any road and could only be accessed by passing through the vast forest of Sicily, which was inhabited by wolves and wild beasts. For this reason, the bishop was reluctant to act, and whereupon the Archangel Michael appeared again. Incensed at the bishop's prevarication, he struck the cleric with a blazing finger, leaving a deep mark in his skull, persuading him to finally build a sanctuary which gave the site the Christian name of Saint Michael's. And in later years, the hole in the relic of the bishop's skull was explained as a mark of the archangel's finger. So I found that story really interesting. So, but I mean, there's a lot of instances where Christian churches were built over like pagan temples, like Temple of Mithras, for example. So there's that connection too.
Interesting.
And here's another representation of Michael by Guido Reni, Michael defeating Satan. There's another image of Michael, which I think I found on another website called DeviantArt, but I don't know if they named the artist, so I'll just leave it as unknown. Some other apocalyptic images of Michael casting out the dragon, defending the woman clothed the sun from Revelation 12. And then let's see here. And here's a Sun Lady Unveiled, very AI. And now that's like a AI system that generates artwork just based on the words you put in. So yeah, you can definitely go online and do that. Yeah, I mean, I didn't do it, but I just the AI system did it.
It's scary good. I mean, probably took it 20 seconds, and it would take a human,
like a few months,
20 hours. Yeah.
Or just to like perfect the whole thing. Yeah, or like like a few days just to make a really good artist probably take a few days.
Oh yeah. Even the fastest Photoshop artist, that's several hours. And they're doing it in seconds. And I mean, it's going to change everything. Like you're right, we have these new technologies that are maybe going to become the heads of the new religion, for better or for worse.
I know it seems like that would work with our AI god becoming the Demiurge of the world. So much insanity,
Oh yeah,
the beast, So I don't know if you want to play the trailer. It's kind of long.
Yeah, let's do that.
But I mean, I'll just read. I'll just read the summary real. So because on the text of the trailer, it's a little too fast. I'll just read it real quick here. So it's here, the Book of Revelation, chapter 12, tells of a pregnant woman clothed with the pangs. It also tells us before Saint Michael flung the dragon to the earth, he pursued the winged Sun Lady to devour her and her royal child of God, but in the last moment, they are snatched away to safety. Many have speculated this story connects to the great celestial sign pointing to a series of future calamities which are unfolding before our eyes. So these stories, symbols, and archetypes point to an emerging revelation about humanity's secret past and ultimate death. We must travel back to ancient Israel, Samaria. That's with Samara, Samaria, not Sumeria, but even there's a connection there as well. Egypt, Rome, Greece, and Babylon to find the origins of the Sun Lady. So why does the occult place special emphasis on the Book of Revelation? Do you have the heart and mind to discover the truth? Join me, Alex Rivera, for an exciting and dangerous journey into the esoteric and hidden dimensions of the Sun Lady Unveiled. So yeah, awesome. Go ahead and play it if you want.
Okay, right on. So here we go.
So yeah,
It's pretty intense, Alex. I look forward to reading your book. And for those who want to pick it up, they can find your work on Amazon, yes?
for sure. Yeah, and I'm gonna go to my next slide here. Can you see my slide here?
Not yet. Let me stop sharing.
Okay.
Okay. We're ready now?
Okay. So it is available on Amazon for sure. So that's my book. So it's the front cover, of course, and then on the left and the back cover on the right. And the artwork is from a guy named Jesse Pepper, and you can go to his website. He's a brilliant artist. So I think I'm going to him for my next books here. So I'm still working on them. So we'll see how they turn out. I am working on a new book. It's called The Laurel Turns Green, which is a collection of different essays I wrote on my website, but I took them down, but for different reasons. But I decided to republish them on a new book for people to read. So hopefully I'll get that done soon, within the next few months here. And then I'm working on another project as well. It's taking up a lot of my time as well. So we'll see how that both turn out. But the other artist projects, it's kind of too early to tell. But I'm still working. I mean, we're working on it slowly but surely, So I do all this stuff on the weekends, when I have time. But this isn't really like my full-time job. So
Well, not
eventually, I
yet.
would
And
like to do this.
totally. I think you can. And for all those listening in, Alex just gave us, almost 3 hours of his time, and which is, a culmination of decades of research. And I think he's really onto something here. And I think everyone would gain something and be edified from going through his work. Christians, Muslims, Jews, you name it. This is a decode that you're receiving. And please support him if you want to see art flourish. The big box companies, the corporate conglomerates, they have more than enough. And they're not our friends. We saw it with the Great Reset, with the COVID farce that they pushed on us. They could care less if they perpetuate genocide. So support independent artists, support independent philosophers. Go to Alex's website, theaoni.com. Join his email list, find him on socials, send him your questions and follow-ups. He has the potential to go even further with his research, but like so many of us, he's chained to just a job that's not fulfilling his passion. And so I want to have him back soon to communicate more of these ideas with other of our former guests, such as, say, Joe Atwill and William Ramsey and Robert Forte, because these are the people pushing the limit and really bringing forth that gnosis that we need, so we can understand who these people are, what their intentions are, and the myths that they believe in and they enact at our expense. So, Alex, thank you so much for your time today. Everybody, go check out his website, check out his books. The Baphomet book, he's not getting paid from that right now. The guy, Tracy's ex, has been going after people and getting them to take down her videos and blogs and just, acting pretty screwy and weird. So it's a great book to check out. But if you want to support Alex directly, purchase the Sun Lady Unveiled or make a donation through his website. And, please stay in touch with him and support him any way you can. And I look forward to having you back, Alex. So thank you so much for everything today. This has been pretty mind opening and expanding and mind blowing information as always. And I'm going to let you take it
Thank
out
you so
from
much.
here.
Yeah. So, I mean, in regards to the Baphomet book, I mean, it is what it is. It's a very unfortunate situation, but a lot of people are suffering. It sucks, but it's what it is again. But I mean, as far as website, you can definitely go online to my website, theani.com. You can look at a ton of different articles and videos. I have a bunch of videos on my YouTube channel, which I don't have the URL here, but you can, Cameron will definitely link there to you. And then also you can follow me on my Instagram. I do have a Facebook, but I don't really post on it. I hardly post on it. So, but I am fairly active on Instagram, though. So there you go.
Very cool, man. Well, I look forward to reading The Sun Lady Unveiled, and I think you have 2 other books in the works, and you're publishing independently, so no corporate backer holds sway over what you can reveal or not. And Tracy, you guys are really pushing the limits here and leading edge scholars of the occult. So I hope that those out there listening will support you so that you can expedite the release of that and declassification of this new information that you've gathered. Well, thank you so much. This is going to do it for Gnosis today. Everybody out there listening in, if you appreciate independent media and what we're doing here, please also go to sacredgeometryinternational.com. I'm working on a membership site. This is all listener supported, independently supported. I've taken on quite a bit of debt, and I'm still paying it off. But everything that I receive goes right back into keeping the lights on, making new content, and opening minds and sharing ideas that you're not going to get pretty much anywhere else. And so every little bit helps, even if it's $1 a month, $5 a month. You want to buy me a coffee. If you don't have the money, I completely understand. They want to destroy us. They want to reduce us to peasant status again, these so-called elites, these scumbags. So if you're opposed to that, support those people who are doing the work to reveal who they really are so we can avoid that raft that they're cooking up for us in so many different ways. So go to sacredgeometryinternational.com. If you become a subscriber now, a monthly subscriber, I will send you some good stuff. And of course, you can always join my email list and drop some comments, share the information online. Just stay in touch. Let us know who you want to hear from, so on and so forth. In future iterations of the podcast, we're going to have a live chat function, so you'll be able to communicate directly with these amazing authors and scholars and other creators. So thank you so much, guys. Appreciate your time. Alex, thank you so much, brother. I look forward to the next round, and I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Take care.
Take care.